There comes my husband. This is Tessa. This is my first one.
Oh, yes. Nice to meet you.
Oh, there's Elizabeth. I want to see you. Or it might be.
Try that, kids out there, they're all really
For sure. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, guys. This sounds really loud once I put it up here, but we'll work with it. My name is Brittany Darling, and I work with Emily Hicks at Emily Hicks Law, and we are your official hosts for today. We have a fantastic panel for you guys. We have Gregg Ritscher with Jax Hope. We have Gregg Hummer, also with Jax Hope. We have Donna Lee with the Alzheimer's Association, Paulette Kozlowski with the Council on Aging, and Emily Hicks with Emily Hicks Law. And they will be talking about resources here in Jacksonville for Parkinson's, for Alzheimer's, general resources with the Council on Aging, and then how to address estate planning in the midst of a dementing disease. And that's what Emily will focus on today. So I'm going to give the mic to Gregg, and we will get going.
Well, I'll talk into the mic. Thank you for the opportunity. Just a point of clarification. Gregg Hummer, my good friend, who spells his name with 2 G's at the end, so he's G squared. I'm Gregg Ritscher with 1 G at the end, so I'm just G. And he's twice the speaker I am, but I live over in Panama City Beach, and so I cover the Emerald Coast area, and obviously Mr. Hummer takes great care of you folks over here on the First Coast side of things. So the title of my presentation is Hope of Mine. I am a walker mover, so I'm not going to stand over there, but you have Parkinson's. That's what I heard. I heard those words, and I actually heard you have Parkinson's and you got it pretty bad. which didn't make my wife and life partner all that happy to hear. But for being a warlord of commerce, I was like, hey, that's fine. Let's just get to brass tacks. How many years do I have left? And he said, this is back in April 26, 2011. He said, oh, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. The last two are a bitch. So I nominated him instantly for Bad Announcer of Diseases Award winner. And we went on from there. By the way, I did just recently send him another email because now I've had Parkinson's for 14 years. And I told him, oops, you're a little off on your math. What is Parkinson's? Well, I think many of you are probably aware. It is what's going on?
Because she turned you down.
She turned it down.
Oh, okay, all right. Can you all hear me if I just talk?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, just do that. So, what is Parkinson's? Well, it's a neurological disorder. Guess what? Once you're in the club, you're in the club. You don't get to get out of the club. And here's fear. Future expectations appear real. This is the major problem that all of us have, because if you're anything like me, I'd never heard of Parkinson's. I didn't have any clue as to what it was about or anything like that. But I did have questions like, am I going to become a burden? What is this going to do to my career? Will I lose my identity? And what does it do to my lifespan? Well, I am a big fan as a career person. I was a strategic planner and I helped build companies and empires. We would build them, get to a certain size, the owner would tell me when he was tired, bored, sick, whatever, and then we sell them. So I'm a big vision and goal person. The vision of my life now is simple. Make Parkinson's wish it had never met me. It picked on the wrong person. Genetic testing is something that's available now. I've done all the genetic testing. I have a 0.00008% chance of having Parkinson's genetically. Absolutely none of my major Parkinsonian genes, there are 7 of them, in my genome. I don't have a single variant, but I've got Parkinson's. My goal, right there, the picture you see, that is my granddaughter. She's 5 years old. And I'm a big fan of, I want to see her walk down the aisle. So I probably have 20 more years of this crap. And it is crap, living with Parkinson's. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. And what do I plan to do to get there? To thrive. Next slide, please. By the way, all the things I'm going to tell you about medical parts of Parkinson's, I'm not a doctor. I'm an old person with Parkinson's. Okay? You have to be careful what you think you know. The only reason I include this slide is Dr. James Parkinson's, the person who was in London, he lived from 1755 to 1824. And this is a picture often attributed to Dr. James Parkinson. Now that is Dr. James Parkinson's, but not the Dr. James Parkinson's. This guy is a geologist, because the oldest known photograph is 1826. Well, Dr. James Parkinson died, so either we dug him up and took his photo. But that's not, you gotta be careful what you know. Now, Dr. James Parkinson's, he wrote his thesis, an essay on the shaking palsy. Again, why did he come out in London? Well, what I think, I have a daughter who lives in London. It's a tidal river. Heavy duty fog sets in, and you know, we think we have fog along the coast. You haven't met fog till you go to London, and you're like, well, I know she's over there somewhere, but where'd my wife go? And she'll be 5 feet away from you. So he notices that 6 people that he sees all the time, it's funny, but they're handshakes. And they do this. They stoop over and they stomp and they do all these sort of fun things. Well, not much really happens until the true, in my opinion, the true founder of Parkinson's, Dr. Giroux, he comes along and says, well, let's name it after James Parkinson's because he wrote this theory. Look at the huge year gaps that we have here. Not much is going on in the world of Parkinson's. Now we get down here to the bottom, and I'm going to tell you, and hopefully show you, that in the last 5 years, we've made more inroads in understanding Parkinson's than we have in the previous 200 and some odd years. Next slide, please. Hey, you know what? Americans, we love maps. I need to get from here to there, so I want to see a map. Maps work if A, they're an accurate representation of reality, and B, they're of the location that you're at. Because I'm currently in Jacksonville, Florida area. I could have a great map of Seattle, but that doesn't do me any good because that's not where I am. So in my opinion, I think we should learn to think more about the compass. If you're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout and you grew up and someone taught you how to use a compass, you can get anywhere in the world with a compass if you know how to use it. Because it relies on longitudinal and latitudinal emphasis. So you have a true north, a true south, a true east and west. I think north is intellectually understanding Parkinson. Tell me more about the disease, what makes sense. South, to me, is spiritualness. I'm not telling you what to believe, I just believe that I notice that people who seem to do the best with Parkinson's seem to have a spiritual nature to themselves. East is simple, that's exercise, that's the greatest exercise. You can't take or do anything better for yourself than exercise. And West is self-efficacy. We have to be in charge of ourselves and not do the normal thing of, I'll go to the doctor, he'll tell me something, then I'll come home and live it. All right, next slide, please. So what about exercise? Well, it should be aerobic. There should be some strength involved in it. Part of that is all of us getting older, right? We need to stay away from osteoporosis and stuff like that. Balance, stretching, and I believe that training should be specifically goal-oriented. Thanks. So Parkinson's is this big puzzle in our life, isn't it? No one can tell. Have you ever noticed how everybody with Parkinson's, you go, do you have this symptom? Some people raise their hands, some people don't. My Parkinson's changes from day to day, from hour to hour, depends on where my meds are. And you're like, man, what a puzzle. I'm trying to put this together. I'm trying to figure out my life. And I got this giant puzzle, and nobody has the same puzzle I have. Well, there is a way to go. Can you tell me which way that is? Go forward, okay. Or, if we take the puzzle parts of Parkinson's and read between the lines, guess what? I can tell when you get it. Brittany just got it. Yep, you just got it. Which way should we go? West. Right? Does everybody see the... So part of what we have to do is we have to look at the puzzle of Parkinson's in our lives and how we can implement that. Next slide. Kintsugi. This is a Japanese philosophy, and I think that our society could learn to incorporate this. 14th century technique where you take gold powder, put it in lacquer, and back then, if you had a bowl and it had been in your family for years and years, and you give it to little Johnny and Johnny drops it, in America, what do? Throw it away, right? In Japan, you know what? They can put the big pieces back together with this gold lacquer. And this has become an art form, and it's called kintsugi. So it emphasizes the broken pieces as opposed to diminishing them. And you look at the value of that bowl over the life that it incorporated or helped you in what you were doing. So that is the Japanese philosophy of kintsugi. Well, I saw that and I said, that's me with Parkinson's. Next slide, please. Because I had Parkinson's, right? Then I started falling apart at the seams, shaking like a leaf and doing all those other kind of fun things. And whoop, this is, Gregg's brain. And so I decided to have DBS, deep brain stimulation surgery. And so, hey, okay, Gregg, let's drill some holes, slide some wires, and keep you awake, so you guys remember that, right? Stand up, sit down, fight. We do all the same thing. What's that? No, I know. So I have these two electrical leads in my brain. By the way, hope everybody knows your brain, there's absolutely no pain. Brain doesn't have pain sensors. So I hear people all the time go, oh my God, I can't believe that you slid electrical wires into your brain. And you go, yeah, and it's really cool. You hear sounds. Anybody aware of that? As they're sliding these leads into your brain, it sounds sort of like whale song. But you hear different sounds, and you can actually help them figure out where the leads are. So let's take a look at some of the major advances we've had. Levodopa cardopa is the gold standard for Parkinson's medication. Has been since 1962. By the way, can you name another malady in American medical system where the gold standard drug was literally released over 60 years ago? Go ahead, somebody say aspirin. Yeah, insulin.
Antibiotics.
Yeah, some antibiotics. But it just kind of amazes me, if so many people have all this Parkinson's, why are we're just making the same forms of everything. I know. I'll pass around. This is the current, all the different forms of levodopa you can take. So you can find your favorite one and put it on there. Here's all the other drugs that you can take. And all I'm simply saying, am I anti-drug? No. But if you're putting all that into your body, do you think your body's having a whole heck of a lot of fun? I don't know. Here's a whole bunch of new research studies. They're taking gold nanoparticles, you ingest them, then you use heat to move them up to your brain. This is going on over in China right now. So how to have deep brain stimulation surgery without sticking the wires in your brain. Biomarkers, 2 years ago, we just came up with one. It does require spinal fluid, so that's a spinal tap, that's a little less fun. But now they're coming up with ones for the, they can tell just literally how many of your Lewy bodies, if you've heard of that, that's generally what you think causes that. Headlines, we have for the first time a national legislation that we've been able to get passed for Parkinson's. It's called the National Plan to End All Parkinson's. Unfortunately, it's being interpreted or used by our government. And so there's a committee of 13 people. You ever not want to get anything done, just go ahead and have a committee. Right? One person with Parkinson's is on that committee. Yeah, we should end it real fast. All right, opportunity is nowhere. One of the things I like to do is challenge people. If you put a space between the W and the H in nowhere, what does that now say? Opportunity is now here. It's the same language, the same letters, in the same order. Really different message. And that's what we've got to do with Parkinson's. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. You kept them within pretty much 15 minutes. Probably have the opposite problem with me trying to fill 15 minutes. So,
That's okay.
borrow some of my time, that's okay. So, anybody here have Parkinson's in the room? Anyone know somebody with Parkinson's? Husband? Okay. So what we do at Jax Hope is when you hear those words, you got Parkinson's, what do you do? Well, first of all, you go to you're by yourself sometimes, or you're with your mate, and you go through it. Why me? What is this? What is Parkinson's? When I got Parkinson's, we were living in Hawaii on a big island. I was 55 and working for a big company, doing pretty good. Looking forward to retirement at 62 and travel. And then the things started happening. My job was like a merchandiser, and I would start dropping things, and I'd get on a ladder to hang a sign and fall off the ladder. So it got to a point where I just couldn't work. So you panic. And then you hear those words and you don't know what it is. And being on the big island of Hawaii, there wasn't much information. There were maybe 2 neurologists on the whole island, which is about the size of Connecticut. And there's nothing really, so you go on YouTube and you get all the films and you hear all the bad stories and all the people shaking. And so I went to my doctor and I asked him what should I expect. I had a good doctor. He was a good doctor, good old country boy. And what can I expect? Well, he said, well, you're going to be using a cane pretty soon. You better buy a cane and get used to walking with a cane. And he said, about 5 years from now, you'll be using a walker. And then maybe 7 to 10 years, probably in a wheelchair. So I think you did, like Greg said, 10 to 12 years. And so you go in a state of depression it lasted for me about a month or 2. I just didn't know. We lived in Hawaii and it rained every day, the grass would grow way high, and I had to mow it every week. But after about being in this depression, I didn't mow it. So 3 or 4 weeks, the grass got a little higher. So Lita said, well, I'll mow the grass. So she started up the lawnmower and going up like it, and I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself. I said, wait a minute, I can do this. I went up, pushed her out of the way, and I took it over. And it usually would take me, we lived on an acre, so it would take me 5 to 6 hours to do the acre. And it still took me 5 to 6 hours, but it took me 3 days to do it. But I did it. And I started to, wait a minute, I can live with this thing. Maybe it isn't death sentence, which it's not. Parkinson's not a death sentence. So we went on, I joined the support group. We had 2 guys in it with me, so 3 of us. And we basically talked about, what we've done in our past life. We don't really talk much about Parkinson's. So working at a newspaper before, I knew a couple of reporters said, well, we're gonna be having a meeting such and such a day, could you put a little thing in the paper? So I put an article in the paper, and that next meeting, instead of 3, we had 33. And there were people that I knew there at that meeting, but you just didn't know, because when you have Parkinson's, and what we try to prevent is you going through that shell, you're in a shell, and you just wanna be by yourself, because you shake a little bit, you stumble, sometimes food falls out of your mouth, so you're embarrassed. So what we do at Jax Hope is we try to connect people to support groups. And support group can be anywhere from 5 to 55. And get people involved in exercising, get people involved in social activities, have speakers come in. So you're outside, you're doing things. One of the things that helped me when we moved to Florida from Hawaii is I joined an exercise group. And all the instructors had Parkinson's. And it got a little interesting sometimes, especially when they forget to take their medicine. You know, sometimes they trip, and we do number games, we do singing, and we forget the words, we forget the numbers, so it's just been fun. We have fun. But we are moving, because that's one thing that everyone agrees on, is exercise slows the progression, and sometimes you can even stop it. So that was my first adventure into really getting involved with a program. I became an instructor, and we still meet in Orange Park twice a week. We have 25 to 30 people come every class. And the thing is, we have fun. And we're a group, we're a big family. So what we do at Jax Hope is try to connect you to a support group in your area. Currently there's 8 Parkinson support groups between Palm Coast and Southern Georgia. And then there's caregiver groups, and there's other groups within the group that they go out and have fun. They go out and bowl, they go to ball games. We go out to eat every so often. We go to a restaurant. It doesn't matter if we dribble our food, it doesn't matter if we stumble. We just live with it because we're used to it. And so it just keeps people involved, and the more involved you are, the longer you're gonna last, and you're gonna stop this progression, and you're gonna stay away from the canes and the walkers and the wheelchairs. And that's what the goal is. We don't wanna, Parkinson's is not a death sentence. You're not gonna die of Parkinson's. You might die of a fall, or you might die, you can't breathe because your muscles aren't working good enough. But it's not a death sentence. And I think Jimmy Carter even had Parkinson's. He lived to be 100. Billy Graham was in his 90s. So you learn to live, and you don't become ashamed or embarrassed. And so when you're with your own people, it just helps. So Jax Hope, we have educational events. We support exercise programs, boxing programs. We do Tai Chi, yoga. We work with the YMCA, we work with Brooks Institute to get activities going. And then we have a golf tournament once a year. And people with Parkinson's play golf. They don't play that good. Well, Greg, he played pretty good. But, it's just one of those things. It's a strange disease because you see the shaking, and you see the movement disorder, and you just gotta like, hey, that's it. That's me. That's what happens, And you don't like it? Well, go to the next room. I'm gonna enjoy my life. I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna live a full life. And so it's important to, once you hear those words, you talk to your partner, and you talk to your doctor, and then reach out and find a group that to be with. So if you have family members that hear those words, I've got Parkinson's, get them involved. Is he involved in a group?
On 3rd Street, on A1A in Jax Beach.
Jax Beach, okay, they meet every week.
Yeah,
they meet every week.
Thursdays.
Yeah.
Just this morning right now.
Yeah, right, okay. So you get in a group and you have discussions like this. You have doctors come in, give you education. Are you giving me the sign?
No, you're good.
Get education, and then you also have fun and get into an activity. So That's why here at Jax Hope is we connect people to these different groups, so that's about all I got to say. All right, thank you. Mr. Garland?
So, good morning, yep, still morning. My name is Donna Lee, I am with the Alzheimer's Association. I cover a geographical territory from up to Tallahassee, all the way through to Jacksonville, south to Gainesville, and then back up the coastline. And they won't buy me a helicopter, I don't know what the deal is, you know? I mean, they're just being unreasonable. Now, my role with the Alzheimer's Association is education and awareness and preparing our communities and our people in it to either become caregivers of those living with Alzheimer's or dementia, or to take the dementia journey and make it easier for that person living with it. Now, we all know that any of these diagnoses, you don't get them alone. Your family goes with you on the journey, no matter what it is. Whatever that family looks like, neighbors, friends, co-workers, whoever, it is a group effort. People that navigate this by themselves need so much more help than those that have a good family unit. My role is to get people thinking about, talking about, how do we either get better prepared if we're already in the journey, or if we're not there yet and there's indicators or feelings, or we're just concerned about it, let's get you ready for it. So, first thing, take out your phone if you don't mind. We're gonna do a quick little exercise. I want you to plug in a phone number. We're gonna call it. Well, not call it, we're just gonna save it. So 1-800, or you're welcome to just write it down. 1-800-272-3900. Now normally I ask, does anybody have this number already saved in their phone? You do. I love that, thank you. So this is the Alzheimer's Association helpline. Now, I want you to hold on, I'm fixing to strike a nerve. You ready? Ready? When you call this number, you reach a live human being. Alzheimer's Association, how can I help you? You believe it? Not 12 windows and 14 options and stand on your head to speak to a human. You get a real one right off the bat. Now, who is that person? That person is a master level clinician. They are trained in everything from, I got some questions. I'm experiencing something about myself. I don't really want to talk to my primary care physician yet, because y'all know once you get that diagnosis on paper, once somebody says that, there's this artificial fear that is manufactured immediately because of our culture that, oh gosh, your whole life's fixing to change. Somebody's coming to take your driver's license. It doesn't really happen that way, but that's what we've been taught to believe. So people don't talk to their primary care physicians or doctors about this until it's so far along that it's very, very obvious. So these people will help you get to information and just basic questions like, what's going on? What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Tell me what that looks like. They can also take, okay, y'all, we just got a diagnosis, we just left our family doctor and they want us to go see a neurologist, or they want us to go be screened at the memory disorders clinic, or whatever the case may be. What do we do next? So these folks will help you get connected to a first steps support group. It's for families and people that have just been recently diagnosed about, what the heck do I do now? How do we start navigating this journey? How can we get ahead of predictable, often experienced, frequently asked questions, all those problems and challenges that come up that nobody else is talking about? These people that are living it, we're all talking together. So that kind of support group, they get you connected with that. Then as things progress, I'm a caregiver, I'm calling this helpline, something's gotta give, I need to take care of myself. I've got doctor's appointments myself. I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I am just physically and emotionally drained. I need some help with this. How do I navigate? What will Medicare cover? What will it not cover? Do I have long-term care insurance, and what will that look like? What do I do if I don't have any other help? What is available in my backyard to help me navigate all of this so I don't go down too? How do we navigate that? And then it goes all the way up to 1:30 in the morning, a caregiver calls into the helpline and says, I'm so absolutely done with this. I'm standing beside the bed of my loved one with the pillow in my hand. Please talk me out of smothering them. That is a real call, on average about 2 a week in Florida. For real. So they can help navigate every single bit of that. They're trained in de-escalation over the phone. They're trained in resource management over the phone. They're trained in helping people and families navigate all of the ins and outs, the insurances, the local resources, getting you connected with people like Emily to start talking about how do we start planning for all of this. They can do every bit of that. So if you leave here today with nothing else that I've said, that helpline, and I've got small flyers here for you, but I want you to save the number in your phone, because y'all know this piece of paper will get misplaced somewhere. So save the number in your phone and share it. Hand it out like M&M's to all your family and friends. Anybody that's on this conversation, on this journey, any of that, share it. Anywhere in the country, 24/7, 365 a year. Now, let's talk about some very, very basic stuff. Who knows the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Those terms. Anybody want to take a stab at it? Now,
Alzheimer's is your brain literally shrinking with the Gilead cells of fatty cells and the tau protein tangles, and dementia is more just the deterioration over time.
so, I do not have a clinical background. That is not my background. What my background is community engagement. I spent 20 years working for the American Red Cross. I deployed 137 times across the country managing high-level operations. Everything from wildfires, plane crashes, domestic terrorism, active shooters, house fires, apartment fires, earthquakes, all that kind of stuff. That's what I did for a living. So I've gotten really good at figuring out what a community needs and how to interact with that community. I don't have the clinical background. I can't tell you all the technical terms about this disease. So when I took this job, I said, number one, are y'all sure you want me? And number two, you gotta teach me how to convey this to the community. I need layman's terms. Like, consider me in 5th grade, teach me how to convey this to people. And somebody sat me down and said, here's the best way that I can explain. Number one, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Dementia is that big umbrella term for most any kind of cognitive decline. When your brain is just not working functionally and functioning correctly, there's probably some sort of type of dementia that's present. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Think about it this way. Think about the word cancer. So-and-so says, hey, Donna at church just got diagnosed with cancer. Your first questions in the back of your mind are, well, what kind is it? And how far along is it? What stage is it? Dementia is that big umbrella term, like the word cancer. Well, what kind of dementia is it? Is it Alzheimer's, which is the most commonly talked about and most commonly diagnosed? Is it Lewy body, which is now becoming more socialized because of people like Bruce Willis's family, the actor, that is now talking about that journey. We have seen such a huge increase in support groups, diagnosis, and all of those around Lewy body dementia because now we're talking about it, we're socializing that. What about vascular dementia? Anytime there is a blood disruption, oxygen disruption to the brain, think about our veterans, traumatic brain injuries, concussions that are sustained over and over, athletes, football players, soccer players, those heavy, contact sports, wrestling, things like that. What about the little kid that falls off his bike every 14 seconds and just will not wear a helmet? Is that person, because of over and over repeated small brain injuries, are they gonna develop dementia later? Who knows? And fun fact for North Florida, excuse me. I'm a Georgia girl, but I'm a transplant to Florida. So here in North Florida, we have our spring-fed river system where I live. I live in Branford, right on the Santa Fe River. So there is a huge, unusually compacted number of people with dementia brought on by bad diving accidents. Their oxygen has been cut off, they have a bad dive, they come up with what's called the bends in our rivers. If you look at the number across the country, there's this weird donut hole in North Florida around those springs. And it's divers that have had a bad dive. And y'all hold on, I'm fixing to strike a real nerve. You ready? Uncontrolled, unchecked hearing loss is the gateway to dementia. Now, my father, who is 86, I'm his warden. He does not need care yet, but I'm his warden. I noticed he was sitting around the table, and y'all, at any given week, there's 10 people around my dinner table at least once a week, at least. And I'm sitting there watching him, and he's going, and then every now and then he says, oh yeah, yeah. Which tells me he's lying to all of us and himself, Because he's gonna ask me 17 questions later about, what did so-and-so say? Now tell me what it said, which means he can't hear nothing. He can't hear anything. So what happens to the brain during that time? It's checked out, it's stagnant, it's not processing on average the 75,000 messages that we as American adults process every single day. So what happens to a muscle if you don't use it? You lose it. And dementia absolutely, like he said, deteriorates the brain. An adult human brain typically weighs about 3 pounds. Imagine holding it in 2 hands, about 3 pounds. An adult that has lost their life due to Alzheimer's, their brain can weigh as little as half a pound. When your brain goes from this size to this size, that makes sense why nothing works anymore. So, I'm gonna shut up for a moment, but the most important thing is we need to talk about it. We need to flush this conversation out in the public. We need to get it ahead of time and early. If you notice symptoms, if you're having challenges, if your memory disruptions are disrupting your day-to-day life, you're now making decisions to not go do something or not do something you would normally do because you're scared of your memory, talk to your primary care physician. Don't ignore it. Don't be the ostrich in the sand. Don't do that. Talk to your doctors about it. Get ahead of it. Call the helpline. We'll get you started. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna, for that wonderful talk. I'm Paulette Kozlowski. I'm from the Council on Aging, St. Johns County Council on Aging. And I'm a registered nurse. I do have the medical background, caring for people with dementia. I have been managing the adult daycare down actually I started it in 2003 for the Council on Aging and have been there ever since. But also have a program for caregivers, community caregiving. So we try to address both the family and the one that has some form of dementia. We also have memory enhancement programs designed for anyone who is experiencing difficulty with their memory and just wants to challenge the brain a little bit more. And we have one of those right here in Ponte Vedra. You may have passed it already on A1A sometime next to, what is that called? I forget the building right now, but it's right on A1A. You'll see Ponte Vedra Memory Care Center. Anyway, I'm gonna pass this around. If any of you are caregivers, you can take a picture of it on your cell phone. That's the program that will help any caregiver that is experiencing difficulty. I love the 1-800 number, the 24/7, because the Alzheimer's Association, that's a fantastic program to fall back on, especially late hours at night or something when you're really having difficulty and not sure what to do. How many of you are caregivers in here? Raise your hand. And how many of you are experiencing any form of loss of memory? Raise your hand. Okay. So, what happens when someone develops dementia is, prior to this, usually the family lives together and is like this, in balance. One of them may, you have household chores, so one side helps the other with that. It could be cutting the grass, cleaning the house, those kind of things. Any of your paying bills, maybe one works, one helps pay the bills as far as the financial part of it goes. Well, what happens when someone develops dementia is this gets out of whack. The caregiver ends up having to do a little bit more because the person that's afflicted with a chronic illness is no longer able to do that. And so this is what happens. Life gets unbalanced. And so we're here to help get you back into balance. How that works is number one, education. When someone has a chronic illness, it's important that you learn about it, the family members, so that they understand it better and can deal with it better. And when they are no longer, when they end up having to carry more of the burden of care for that person or even just the household in general, it's important that the one that has the chronic illness allows this, because a lot of times they'll say, no, we don't need help. We're not gonna hire them, or they hire them and the person with a dementia will often fire them, saying, I don't need any help. So it's important from both ends that they understand the need, so that you as a caregiver don't get burnt out. No one here, and no one that I know of on this earth, is their body is made to do a job of two people 24/7. Your body will break down, your health will break down, and oftentimes that does happen. Caregivers often die first, even though they're caring for someone with a chronic illness, because their bodies just can't do it and they don't have the help they need. So this program, the Community Caregiving Program, is designed to help you as a caregiver and your loved one. We provide education, we provide one-on-one meetings. That little code that you see, that QR code on there, you can scan on your phone, and it'll take you directly to our individual caregiver needs assessment, so that we can see you as an individual, what your real needs are, because everyone's is a little different. Some people have a lot of education already, they don't need that, they just need a little bit of help otherwise, maybe financially or lawyers, things of that nature, power of attorney information. So it's important that we learn everything that you need and that we're there for you. That's another important thing. Sometimes caregivers start to feel isolated because now they are experiencing things that their friends and family don't always see. And they don't want to discuss a lot of this because people don't understand. Well, once you work with people that do understand what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier. I have been caring for people. I'm a registered nurse with over 30 years of experience caring for people with dementia, and an educator about dementia. So this is you can find it on Amazon. I wrote a book that helps families, trying to make it clear and simple. So it's a short book, but it is available to you. And it's showing you that, again, just like they said with Parkinson's, life does not end when someone develops a chronic illness. You can still have a wonderful life and actually be happy together, even though you're getting these awful diagnosis from the physician. So this book is trying to show you too how life can continue to go on. Just accept that you need some help, get the help you need, and you will be so surprised how enjoyable you can still find happiness in life after the diagnosis. We also have, for people that don't have either one of these, if you're not a caregiver and you're not someone that has a chronic illness that is debilitated enough where you need help, we have senior centers, 6 senior centers around town. Just as I came up today on the radio, I heard them saying that the government now is looking into, the government of Florida actually is looking into putting more funding into, as you hear them downsizing, I was surprised of that, but putting more funding into the elderly population, the seniors, and so that they are not socially isolated. They were saying just how much social isolation now, in this day and age, all our family members are usually living in different states and so forth. So We offer 6 different senior centers. There's a Players that some of you may be familiar with that is in Ponte on Landrum Road. So if you aren't familiar with that one, you may want to check it out. You can go on the internet. Our website is www.coasjc, so Council on Aging in St. Johns County. Any questions? We have that memory enhancement program. If any of you are interested, there's a little brochure on that too. I have several of these. And then our caregiver support groups. So as part of this community caregiving program, what we do for people with dementia, for caregivers that are caring for someone with dementia, is number one, if they need it, provide free education. And then we continue them on and encourage them to join our support groups. We hold them both on Zoom and in person. So for people that can't leave home, or maybe they live a little further away than the in-person ones, which are in Napatee and also 180 Marine Street in St. Augustine, you can catch us on Zoom. So that's about it. If you have any questions or anything you want to ask, just let me know. Yeah.
Is there any transportation available?
So transportation, yes, is available up here. Our number to call for that is the main number, right? And you can also pull it up on the website. It's 904-209-3710. So 904-209-3710.
And is there any paid transportation available?
So transportation runs on a government grant as far as the payment of it. You can do a private pay, which can be very costly because there's a loading fee and everything. But to apply for the government part of it, it goes by household income. Not anything of what you have in the bank or anything, but just your monthly income.
Right.
And so you ask the transportation department to give you one of those forms, or you can do it over the phone. And they will tell you if you're eligible for that grant. And if you are, then usually there is no charge. They will, if you're eligible for that, they will take you grocery shopping or to any of your medical appointments. And the grocery shopping is usually the shopping center of your choice. So some people like to shop like at a department store so that they can get other items besides groceries if needed. Sure. Yes.
Actually, I have a question for Parkinson's and Donna. Is there a Venn diagram section where Parkinson's and dementia or Alzheimer's can meet?
So we're currently working together for an event on May 3rd. I was trying to say May 1st and it just didn't sound right. May 3rd, where we are actually collaborating together. I don't have something with me that has a visual representation, but I can go back to my clinical folks and ask that, and I'd love to follow up with you. So if I can.
No, that's what do the three of you come across where Parkinson's and Alzheimer's cross?
So I have people.
You have Parkinson's, you have Alzheimer's, and the Venn diagram is that little section in.
Right.
Yeah, I had never heard of that they were pretty much separate, but that doesn't mean that's finite.
I might be able to answer that for you, not to interrupt, sorry. But, Lewy body dementia is caused by this alpha-synuclein, which is the same protein that causes Parkinson's. So some people can develop Lewy body after having Parkinson's, and some people develop Lewy body prior to developing Parkinson's.
So it's up there.
Yes.
I'm just me thinking of it.
I have a report here. This is from an organization called Me Over PD. But this is all the different types of dementias
Is
and,
it possible to find this?
well, you take a picture of it or make a copy of it. Yeah, just go to bionews.com or beoverpd.com.
I see the same.
Just as you guys are working together, I work with Tina
Right.
over on the Gulf Coast. Personally, I think it's, for too long, science has said, oh, there's Parkinson's, Parkinson's-isms, Parkinson's plus, Lewy body with dementia, and then Alzheimer's. I don't believe that's true. I believe we have mental disorders in our brain, neurological issues. Almost all of them are caused because, as we were just talking about, we have proteins in our bodies, in the cells in your brain. You use energy, which creates waste. It'd be very similar to all of us take our trash and put it in that trash can back there. But after a year, none of us have the time or energy to take it outside. We just keep putting the trash in the trash can, but never take it out of the cell. Eventually those cells die off. Those cells do different things like provide neurotransmitters, they're called, dopamine, serotonin is another one, the happiness drug. So all of those things I think are alpha-synuclein related disorders. And I just think it's where you fall in the, otherwise how do you explain all of us have totally different systems or symptoms, excuse me. I think that's the easiest way in my brain to say, hey, the reason it's all different for everybody is we're somewhere on that continuum. Just
And I'm
based on our age.
seeing more and more people that have a specific Parkinson's diagnosis that are seeking information through Alzheimer's channels, like specifically caregiver groups. Caregiving is caregiving is caregiving is caregiving. So I'm seeing an influx of caregivers of people with Parkinson's that are showing up at Alzheimer's caregiving support groups. So this conversation is marrying more and more culturally every single year. We're seeing it come together, and I think you're correct in that it's all it all comes down to some sort of issue neurologically, and it's just it's the difference between the types of things, but it's all neurological disruption.
And if you think about it, I believe there's a little over 6.5 million people with Alzheimer's in the United States.
Yep.
And there's 1.11 million people with Parkinson's. I've heard that Lewy body dementia is probably 2/3 the size of Parkinson's. So you just add all those up and you go, wait a minute, I just came up with 10, 15, 12 million people in America, just America, that have these neurological disorders. It is the next pandemic waiting to happen.
Well, I'm gonna talk to you about boring stuff. They have the interesting stories, and I'm gonna talk to you about the boring stuff, and that's, the legal side of, what the implications are if you've had a diagnosis or if you're a caregiver for somebody that is experiencing mental decline. So the first thing I think, that's most important is just because you've received a diagnosis, that doesn't mean that you can't sign documents anymore. That doesn't, nothing triggers, kind of like Donna said, nothing really happens. If you come into my office and you're very, confused and you don't know what you're signing, and, then ethically, of course I can't, allow you to sign an estate plan. But even if you have a diagnosis, or you're experiencing dementia, a lot of my clients have dementia. That doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing that day when we're talking and they're signing. It's, you know, it can be a little bit trickier, but you know, if any of you, you know, are experiencing or caregiving, you know, there's good days and there's bad days. So we just gotta get on one of those good days so we can get everything done, because the alternative is so incredibly painful and expensive and bad. So I wanted to really stress to you today that, you know, one of the big I say mistakes, it's not really a mistake, but one of the biggest concerns that people have is, I've got to get my will done. I've got to get a will, oh my God, you know, and they're so worried about what's going to happen after they die and their assets and who's going to be taken care of and things like that. And while that is really important, and I understand the need to, you know, worry about your legacy and worry about what happens after your death, what's most important to me is while you're still alive, you know, and especially if you're experiencing some type of mental decline, because the most important thing that we can put in place at that particular time is the power of attorney. And for those, I think everybody probably understands what a power of attorney is, but I do want to say, you know, they are not all created equal. If you download that, you know, power of attorney off of LegalZoom or, you know, off of a free website or whatever, you get what you pay for, you know, and it's most likely not going to have everything that you possibly may need during your lifetime, because, you know, as y'all know, the world is very complex. We live in a very complex society. We have a lot of, you know, there's a lot of strategic planning that we can do, which, you know, will affect your finances in the future and things like that. If you do have someone in your family or yourself that is experiencing that decline, and you know, are anticipating needing something like long-term care, then we really need to start looking at that sooner rather than later, because it's incredibly expensive. I know, I mean, do you guys know like what the going rate for long-term care per month is right now? It's about $12,000 a month. About $12,000 a month for skilled nursing care. I mean, it's a big bill, you know, and that depletes. And the worst thing, you know, that I see is, you know, we were just talking about this person a couple of days ago. It's actually a distant family member of my husband's. Her mother had a stroke pretty young. You know, she is in assisted living. They have basically, what they have done, they've sold all of the mother's assets, they sold everything, and they have run out of money. Okay, now you can imagine I am super annoyed by this, because I do this for a living, and I have been kind of saying, hey, if you need help, hey, you know, come on over. And no, they think they know that's what we have to do. We have to basically bankrupt ourselves and figure out how to pay for all this. But let me tell you, you don't have to do that. There are legal, ethical ways to get that long-term care paid for, and actually not bankrupt yourself. You know, everybody knows that Medicaid is a program that's a needs-based program, right? And, oh, you can't have any money, I have to spend all of my money, or I have to, by God, please don't give it all away, because then we've got real problems. But everybody, you know, has heard all of these horror stories, or the nursing home took my house, and, you know, I hear that a lot too. You know, there's so many things we can do. Florida, you know, we actually have a lot of options for planning, and I encourage you to, you know, speak with an elder law attorney specifically, because they're gonna know what you need to do. You know, they're gonna know how we can strategically save some money so that you're not bankrupting yourself, you know, and still get you qualified to receive care for, you know, for long-term care, for skilled nursing care, when it gets to that point. Now, there's a lot of time, you know, before you get to that point. I would encourage you to please seek, you know, seek out somebody that can help you get your estate plan in place. And what an estate plan looks like is, usually I would recommend, not everybody wants to do a living trust, but a living trust is a great thing. It helps avoid probate. And probate, if anybody's been through probate, a probate situation with a family member, you know it is extremely expensive and it takes forever, and you're left thinking, what in the world did I just spend $30,000 on? So it could be tens of thousands of dollars, right? You're gonna save a lot more money setting it up beforehand and looking at titles of things and, you know, doing a little bit of homework up front, then your family will be paying for that bill. So I always, you know, encourage people to, let's take a look, and if avoiding probate is one of your goals, which for most people it is, then we can, you know, we can do that. We can set something up so that's gonna help you achieve that goal. So everybody needs a will, we all know that, but then the power of attorney, I can't emphasize how important that document is. That's going to be, you know, it's gonna be something that you're going to rely on if you're a caregiver and you're trying to do planning or trying to do, you know, anything for the person that you're caring for. We need to make sure you have a really good power of attorney in place. And then we have the healthcare surrogate. So you want to, you know, you probably want to choose, if you're in a hospital and you're, you know, you're not conscious, you probably want to pick out the person that makes that decision for you at that point in time, right? And that's what this is all about. The power of attorney, the healthcare surrogate, which is your medical power of attorney. We call it healthcare surrogate in Florida because we have to be different. And, you know, and really confusing because the other, you know, document we have is your living will, and that's what, specifying your medical wishes in the event of incapacity, and if you're in a persistent vegetative state, and, you know, whether or not you want to be kept on life support. So all of that is part of it. Now, I also include a HIPAA release because we always want to have a HIPAA release so you can get information about your loved one in an emergency situation is when that becomes really necessary. And then in the event of dementia, I have a bonus advance directive that is just for dementia, because as that disease progresses, and I don't want to get, you know, on the sad side of things, but, you know, my mother had Parkinson's with Lewy body dementia. So that, you know, that decline was incredibly fast, you know, for her. It took us all by surprise, and I mean, you talk about, you know, it's different, you know, when it's your mom and you're seeing all these things, you know, it's hard. Luckily, we were able to get a lot of things done, you know, for her, but I never had that conversation with her about what does she want medically, you know, when she can no longer eat. Like, you know, what do you do, right? But that's really something you need to think about is if, you know, I don't know if you guys remember the Terry Schiavo case. That's like the really big, you know, popular one that was in the news, and like Janet Reno, you know, got involved. But that case was about nutrition and hydration, because an advanced, you know, stage of dementia, you can no longer eat or drink. So what do you want to happen at that point in time? So, you know, I think it's incredibly important to address, you know, the specific needs of that, and that's what we do with the advance directive in the event of dementia. So I love, you know, including that in there, because I unfortunately have had clients that have had feeding tubes put in and that have just stayed, you know, basically just stayed alive for weeks and weeks, and the family is just tormented by it, you know? So we want to, you know, I think if there's one message I want, you know, to explain or for you guys to think about is, you know, my job is really to put things in place that can honor your wishes, right? I want to, you know, I want your voice to be heard. I want, you know, everything to be put in place so that things go the way you want them to go when we need them. So, you know, don't wait until it's too late to do that. You know, go ahead and try your best to get a plan in place now rather than later, because it's so much harder in a crisis. And, you know, emotions are high and intelligence is low, you know, generally speaking. And there's always something that we can do. So, you know, don't think it's too late necessarily either if you do have a diagnosis. Any questions?
I worked a long time for an attorney, I did estate planning, and we always did a phone call session, I just totally blew my mind. If they're ever put in a retirement home or nursing home,
Mhm.
for who would be in charge.
Mhm.
Pre guardian, I'm sorry.
Yeah, pre guardian, yeah.
And I've noticed that, because I'm working for another attorney right now, and she doesn't do it, and I noticed you didn't mention it, is that something that?
I do actually do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a pre-need guardian.
What's the word you say?
It's weird, pre-need guardian.
It's a declaration to pre-need guardian.
Yeah, so basically you are declaring who you would want to have guardianship over you if that ever came to be. And it's just another way of, saying what choosing your people that you want to be in charge of you.
Lining
A
up
guardianship,
your ducks.
I'm sorry.
Lining up your ducks.
Exactly, lining up your ducks. Because, and I didn't really mention, guardianship is not pretty. And
Well, especially if you don't have someone big.
especially if you don't have someone, because, it's, the process of guardianship, number one, out of the gate is gonna cost you $15,000, just, immediately. But what you're doing is, if I'm petitioning for guardianship over you, I'm suing you to take all of your rights away. I mean, we've been talking about Britney Spears lately in the office for some reason. A couple of clients have had, I'm like, how did, when we sign these pre-need guardians or talk about power of attorney, it's a terrible thing. I'm basically suing you to take all of your rights, and now I have full control over you, and everything is my decision. You no longer have any rights to yourself. I mean, that's a last resort, right? So all of this, we put all of these things in place so that we can avoid that. I mean, certainly I do include the pre-need guardian, as a.
I didn't know it was something that nobody did anymore, or that was no longer
I
necessary or something.
I do it. I do, I put everything in there. But with the hopes of, we never have to use that, because guardianship, it's truly last resort.
So to finish I'm having trouble just knowing when it would come into play. So, I mean, if you do.
If you have advanced stage dementia, let's say, and you can no longer pay your own
Right,
bills,
right.
you can't do anything,
But if you did the pre-need.
It's
then
just,
What, does it avoid the?
no,
lawsuit that you're talking about?
it just gives you a voice, basically. It just says, this is a person that I want,
Oh. But
rather
the person
than.
would still have to go.
Yeah, they still have to go, yeah. I mean, it's quite a process, as it should be, I
Right,
mean,
you don't
it's
just-
quite a process, you don't, but, and the other side of that is if you don't have anyone, then there are professional guardians and things like that. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched that, there's a Netflix movie with, the English lady, what is her name? Anyway, yeah, you know what I'm talking about? I Care a Lot, I think is the name of it. And she's a professional guardian, and she just basically steals everybody's money. She's awful.
Who had an attorney in Orlando.
Oh, yes.
And came in and swooped in to get him power of attorney and everything.
I have a client,
Wipe all that out.
Yeah.
That was expensive.
I could tell you so many really sad stories.
That's why I just think that form is so important.
It is
You
important.
pick. Don't let anybody else.
And that's my, you decide, you get to choose, who you want, because it's incredibly important. We have people come in, that's friend of the family, kind of people that I'm like, okay, like this isn't, if it doesn't feel right to me, I ain't doing it. You know what I mean? So.
That might be a good topic to do later, that voluntary guardianships.
Yeah, it's,
Because they are so important.
Yeah.
People don't think about those.
I know. Well, and everything that I do is trying to avoid those worst case scenarios, so. Any other questions?
We can open it up to all the panelists too, if anyone has any questions for anyone.
By the way, real quickly, I'll just mention, there is literature available on advanced directives and that kind of thing, applicable in the state of Florida, because Florida, as you mentioned, Emily,
We do our own thing.
How can you get that? You're never gonna get it, cause I know you're gonna do it. No, just kidding, just kidding. But what my point is there is literature that's available, you can come up and take a picture of this or whatever you wanna do.
I wanna know.
But what I'm gonna say is that this is just the building blocks of the information, just as if you want some practical how-to tricks of the trade, live with Parkinson's. I live with Parkinson's, so I have practical ideas. But if you wanted to talk to a high-level person, you know, then you probably need to talk to someone who's been a doctor for a longer period of time. So I would recommend that, you know, you can read all of this that you want to get a basic understanding of how the process works. But I would always recommend that you see someone like Emily who knows the tricks of the trade. Otherwise, you're going, what did I sign my life off on? And that kind of, because I've seen what it's done to your pets. Just kidding.
I have a question for either Donna or Paulette. My mom's got dementia, Alzheimer's, and everything's going smoothly now, but I can't get her to go back to church. She stopped going for like 2 months between caregiver, you know, me moving in and the person who was there before that had to get out. And I just can't get her to go. Every Sunday she has a headache. We call it her Sunday headache. You know, and I keep telling her I'm gonna give her a CAT scan to get rid of that tumor in her head. But I've tried everything and she just won't do it. And it's really the only thing she ever did outside of the house. So, except for shopping and going to what, you know, her grandkids are doing, I can't get her out of the house, really, to do anything.
Do you usually go with, or were you going with her, or somebody?
Well, I know I was living in Arlington, she's out in Freedom, and she was driving herself.
Okay.
But I've told her, I will go to your church. And she's like, no, I'll go to yours. And then, of course, when the time comes, the night before, it's like, I don't think I'll go tomorrow. And then the next day, it's like, oh, I've got this terrible headache. And you hear her for like an hour before I leave, you know, starts. And then, you know, she's just in such pain, you know.
So that's not unusual for someone with dementia. They don't wanna leave their comfort zone, number one, because their memory is getting worse, and so they wanna stick to their routine. The other part of this is the embarrassment of getting somewhere where you're supposed to know people, you know, and you may not remember.
Well, that's what I was thinking it was, so I said, well, let's go to my church. She didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And she went to a luncheon and she was fun and everybody loved her, but it was like she didn't want to go there. And it's
Yeah. That's part of it too. They don't wanna leave their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Going with them sometimes helps because they have that support. The same holds true with, getting together at a family get-together. They suddenly may not wanna go to this birthday party when the whole family's gonna be there. And a lot of it is fear that they're not going to recognize the person that they feel they should recognize or remember their name. So sometimes, if that happens, wearing name tags or something like that will help. Or just introducing them again and saying, oh, this is Johnny, your grandchild. He's gotten so big, hasn't he? I hardly recognize him anymore. Will help them feel so much better because, you know, you're taking that burden off of them.
Absolutely, that works. I know I have mild cognitive impairment, and my wife and I actually have a little sign, you know, if I touch my nose, that means you need to quickly jump in and say, oh, you're Susie Cusey, and I'm Gregg's wife, and you're, oh, did I not introduce, you know, Phyllis, you and
I'm
Susie
the last person to
Cusey?
do that because I'm just so bad at names. I'll call my
But
dog.
hopefully you can understand, there are times when you go, like with people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's as well, I know, you have a certain sense of apathy. I don't care that I don't care. I used to care that I couldn't remember people's names. I don't even try anymore. But do I not want to go somewhere? Well, I'm still at the stage where I'll go but I'm gonna avoid names and unless, you know, a lot of churches have name tags, or I have a name tag, mostly not for you, for me. You know, oh yeah, I'm Greg, I forgot about that. So does that make sense? I could understand why she would feel that way, cause why do you wanna go
Yeah,
somewhere?
I just wish I could do something, some way to get her to go.
Would you
It's
rather
hard.
watch TV?
Oh, she watches TV.
Well, would you
all
watch the
time.
mass on TV?
She does, she watches church on TV.
Well, that might be all she wants to do.
So,
Well,
so
she used to be really involved, she used to sing in the choir, go to some Bible study.
Try and keep
I
her as
can't get her to do
involved as
any
you
of that.
possibly can. I'm not a big fan of giving up and saying.
Well, that's what the doctor says she needs to get out more.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I can't pick her up and carry her out the door.
Does she have friends that can come over and visit her?
Yeah, even her children want to come visit her, and they live in Jacksonville. Her daughter comes once a month for an hour.
So that's one of the first indicators that there is a presence of dementia is withdrawing from social interaction. And this is just a food for thought for everybody. People that are normally very socially engaged, they have their routines, whether it's church or you know, some sort of family gatherings or whatever, and they don't want to do that. They start self-withdrawing. Big red flag. One of the 10 warning signs that dementia is present. But we need to stop that if we can and force them as best as you can without physically putting them in a vehicle and taking them. But they need to have good brain engagement and good brain exercise, which is social interaction. Social interaction is the best, hands down, the best brain exercise that you can have. Now, people think, oh, well, you know, mom is sitting at home and she's playing Candy Crush or whatever game, or she's doing word search books and crossword puzzles and all that kind of stuff. You are lying to yourself and her, period. If this is not making you mad enough to throw it out the window because you can't beat it easily, it's not hard enough.
She's got.
So, well, but social interaction, this here, I mean, you guys are sitting there thinking, she don't know what she's talking about, or did she look in the mirror before she left the house this morning, or whatever numerous thoughts. But all of those thoughts that are happening simultaneously, that's brain exercise. So when people start having a presence of any kind of cognitive decline, dementia, even Parkinson's, things like that, a good indicator is gonna be somebody that is going to withdraw. Keep them involved. Now, here's what I would suggest. I would one, contact the local school board, high school school board. They have companion programs for high school students, will come out and do companion services. For instance, because high school students need to have volunteer hours, and many of the high schools have a health academy preparatory type program, and part of that is being introduced to caregiving and just interaction. So there may be some sort of supervised program where you could have a couple high school students come out. Senior services through your local economic council also has companion services. Through your local economic council. I'm not sure what it's called, depending on where you live, it's gonna be different. But, they have companion services where there is somebody that will come out and sit for 2 hours, just for some social engagement, things like that. If she talks about missing her church or whatever, go to that church.
Oh, I tried, she won't.
No.
We'll get somebody from
You go to church,
Oh.
just come to them.
Yeah.
Come to them.
Okay.
Get in touch with the faith-based leadership and say, this is one of your flock, one of your congregation. I'm looking for somebody to come visit. I'm looking for somebody to just come and give her some social engagement. Bring church to her. You may never physically get her out of the house to go do things. Doesn't mean that you can't keep her socially engaged, because that is part of the therapies and part of the caregiving action plans is to keep them socially engaged and don't let them literally wither away at home. But there are lots of opportunities. One of the things, so I wear multiple hats. I work for the Alzheimer Association. I am a community health worker in my community, which is Gilchrist County. And one of the things I do is connect households and seniors to services that they don't know exist. For instance, I live in a neighborhood where I am the youngest person by 30 years. Everybody else is much older than me, much older than me. So they didn't know that through our Swanee River Economic Council, and there's one of these something Economic Council in every single county in Florida. That's the umbrella term, something Economic Council. But just Google senior services at whatever county you're at. They have companion care, which will come out for 1 to 4 hours, depending on what the needs are, to your home. This is a licensed, vetted person that comes out, and all they do is they are assessing what this person may need. Is the house in order? Is mail piled up to the kitchen counter? Is there some sort of your breakdown of just general household cleanliness? Do you see evidence of ongoing meals and things like that there? Is the house secure there? Is there anything that maybe presents danger? But it gives them the ability to have an assessment. It gives your loved one the ability to have a social interaction. In addition to that, there's also homemaking services, housekeepers. There was a lady at my house this morning at 8 o'clock this morning for 2 hours, comes once a week, cleans my daddy's end of the house. It's paid for. It's paid for already. We've already paid for it. It's free to me, but it's through senior services. Most folks don't know about it. That makes the second interaction that my daddy gets besides me in that household, in the house. Then you have the woman that is delivering meals. She comes out every 14 days, brings him 15 meals. They sit there and chit chat and talk, and if you know my daddy, he's a character. So they sit there and talk. Then I have somebody else that comes out through that same group, and all they do is just simply get their eyes on him and report back. He seems to be in good physical health. This is a paramedic through the paramedicine program. Write that down. Through your county, paramedicine is paramedics, doctors, nurses, all of those kind of licensed medical professionals that are designed to go into the homes of seniors to keep them at home. So they're not unnecessarily occupying an ambulance ride, a hospital bed, or something like that. They're just checking on them. They may do vitals. They may just say, hey, how's it going? What'd you do this week? It's human interaction. It's another set of eyes. There's 4 different sets of people that are in and out of my house every single month checking on my dad when I can't be there. And they're doing something. All these services are free in Florida. Doesn't matter how much you pay. It is paid for with different buckets.
Yeah.
But it's all available through your economic council. Every bit of it. And people don't know about it. So my job in Gilchrist County is connecting all these services. I saved a family last month $812 because they were able to stop paying a private housekeeper. They were able to stop having food delivered in and meals delivered in. They were able to stop having somebody come out and just check on medications to make sure dad is taking the medications, things like that. They can't intervene, but they can certainly report back to somebody that can, like family, and it's all free services.
In St. Johns County, Elder Source is the person you need to go through to apply for that type of government assistance that would pay for it. But there usually is a long wait list, just have to give you a heads up on that.
Is it in every county? Something like that?
Elder Source, the government gives Elder Source a certain amount of funding to cover all of Northeast Florida. So they do cover several counties. That's another reason. I'm gonna have to leave.
So Paulette had a hard stop at noon. If you have a really, really fast question for her before she has to go. Well, thank you to our panelists. If you have other, yes. Lunch is provided, grab some lunch, and then we can ask more questions as we eat and have social interaction. Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you.
With one G.
Yes.
Bathroom.